Hey everybody, hope you guys are doing well. The other night, not yesterday, but the night before, the afternoon before, I took my buddy out and we ran into another guy named Rick that I had mentioned many months ago on one of my Facebook posts. Rick is an extraordinarily good pool player, older gentleman, he's going to be 71. Played against some of the pros, played against many Willie Mosconi in a exhibition and so on. And I had mentioned Rick in the past because he was going through some tremendous health problems, heart cancer, and the man was more concerned about the problem that happened to my arm. And I mentioned this specifically on Facebook and how it touched me, how this guy could care more about my arm than what he was going through. Good news is Rick seems to be on the road to recovery. He looked good. He put his weight back on, and uh, he shot one game of pool against my buddy Scott, and then he went to hit the poker machines, and Scott and I played a game. But afterwards we were talking, and Rick and I were basically telling all these stories about the great pool players that we've seen through the years and whatnot. And so yesterday we got to talking, Scott and I, and Scott's like, boy, you guys really knew a lot of people. Well, here's the thing. Yeah, I guess we did, when we made this a part of our life. And you have to understand, in the pool playing world, unfortunately, there have been some shady characters, to say the least. Kind of like in everything else, and other lines of work. If you're an auto mechanic or you're around that, you'll probably know some shady auto mechanics, and the list goes on. Be that as it may, though, we got the subject yesterday between my buddy and I got into things that can happen to you, not even physically, but just the preparatory stuff. How scams can start against you, and how that can ignite or escalate a fight situation. And there have been so many scams pulled, not just in the world of pool, but in everywhere. Card cheating, dice cheating, just everyday events. And I had mentioned a very classic scam that I think I should share with you people, because it may come help you out. Also, a couple of years ago, I had mentioned there was some event happening in Chicago, and I said to watch out for pickpockets and how they'll pick you very, very clean. You'll never know. Well, one of the scams that a pickpocket crew will do is they'll have a plant or a stall, and that person will shout, "I've just been pickpocketed, I've just been pickpocketed." And people will touch wherever, wherever they're keeping their wallet, let's say, if it's up here or here in the back pocket or whatever, and people will go for it to make sure they haven't been picked. That's a signal now to the pickpocket crew that, hey, now I know where this guy's got his stash at. Okay? So there's tons of things like that. That's just one example. I'm not going to get into all of it now, but here's the take on it. When you start thinking along that kind of mindset, it will transfer over into your fighting, because there are scam setups too in fighting. Like for today, on my YouTube video, I posted just one little example of Joe on top of me on the ground, and Joe went back to reach for something. And again, you have to think quick. You have to think scam, scam, scam here. Why, if a guy's on top of you? I can see if he's pulling up like this to hit you. But once these hands start to disappear, you've got to act quick, okay? In a real life, okay, let's put it this way. In a sporting event, watch my YouTube video. You'll understand what I'm talking about. I end up double wrist locking him. But this kind of a frame is what you're looking for, always, because that's a perfect double wrist lock. If a man puts his hand in there, whether he has a weapon or not, if he's reaching back for something or just whatever, boom, go for it. Because otherwise, it could be a scam. The guy's setting you up, and if you don't know any better and you're just trying to hold on, you got him by the neck and his arms are free, he's going to go for it. Like these cross chokes, okay, that people are doing. If me as the guy putting on the choke, my hands are now unable to defend him, okay? So he can simply reach into his pocket, pull out a knife, pull out a pistola, and blast me or stab me, and my choke is rendered ineffective. So these are things that you have to watch out for. And probably because at an early age I was exposed to great pool players, and I mean at a real early age, you know, preteen, cards, you start to understand what can happen. And I took a very good interest in this stuff as a kid, and I used to read books, go to the library, and take out, remember the library? And take out books and read about all the different scams and things that can actually happen. So you want to prevent that by becoming knowledgeable. And that doesn't mean you're going to become impervious to scams, because new scams are created all the time. But you'll at least have a basis to work from. And that's why, like in pool, you know, I mentioned something to, I guess I could talk about this over here. I mentioned something to Scott that Rick had said one of his greatest pool stories was he was, I believe, in Vegas. He got into a pool match with a guy from Chicago. I'll mention his name, Mexican Johnny. That's what he went by. And Rick beat him. Okay, this is in the 70s. Rick was on. So after about 5 games or so, whatever, Mexican Johnny said, "I've had enough." Now Rick did not know who this guy was. As Rick's leaving, some guy approaches Rick, and he said he had a leather jacket on, a gold chain, and whatever, and said, do you know who you just beat? He's like, no. He's like, you just beat Mexican Johnny. He's a pro. He's out of Chicago, blah, blah, blah. And he couldn't believe it. He says, I just won $500 thanks to you. And then Rick goes, well, the least you could do is buy me a drink. And the guy did end up buying him a drink. And then it come to find out X amount of time later, when Rick was watching the movie Billy Jack with his girlfriend, it was Howard Hessman that bought him the drink. Howard Hessman, you guys would know from WKRP in Cincinnati, Dr. Johnny Fever. So Scott was talking about that. And I said, well, the story I'm sure Rick is telling 100% true. But here's my take on it. Being in the pool world like I was, Mexican Johnny didn't probably quit because Rick was a better player or Rick was going to beat him that night. Any good pool player will know that you got to play over the course of hours to get ahead or whatever. It was a scam. And probably to this day, Rick doesn't realize it. But the take on it is this. Mexican Johnny played enough. Rick was good. But whatever they were playing for was probably chump change. Now, Mexican Johnny looked like the sap. So he could easily make up whatever he lost in 1 or 2 games by somebody else saying, oh, I could beat Mexican Johnny. He's not shooting very well, or, you know, whatever. And that's part of the scam. Okay, that's another, sometimes it's called playing under speed. But in the pool world, if you're up against somebody who's just on a roll that day, okay, he's hot, he's not missing many shots, you know what, it might behoove you to really not even try to shoot that much. Just do enough so you don't look ridiculous. But now your mind is set on, let me find another mark, because I'm looking like the bad guy here, and he might have even gotten weight from somebody, okay? So these are just little tricks and tips and stuff that you may not think pertain to a street fight situation, but it can. Once you start thinking about that mentality that everybody's deflecting and misdirection and things aren't always as they appear. And I guess that's my point about when I get mad when I see these YouTube street fight clips of people who you know, don't expect these guys to be armed or dangerous. Always expect armed or dangerous. And in the gambling world, always expect somebody's cheating, or there's an angle, or there's a scam somewhere. And you know, you'll be better off for thinking like that. I mean, it's a negative kind of environment, but you become accustomed to it. All right, you guys. Talk to you later.